Yet it seems that there might be some logical loophole here. Arbitrage pricing tells you a fair price such that you should not trade below this price or above this price. But it did not explain why you should trade at the equilibrium price itself. If options are redundant as they have zero risk, why bother trading them? If this was indeed the case, option markets would simply not exist. So strictly speaking, the Black-Scholes model is a model of a fake market. Of course, today everyone knows that options are risky and the Black-Scholes model is only an approximation to reality. But this is an approximation that seems to wash out risk. How can we model a risky business such as an option trading using models that have no risk? One of my favorite books on derivatives is a book Traders, Guns and Money by Satyajit Das. And he tells a story of a German bank that hired a professor from a leading university to quantify its risk. When after some months of calculations, the professor came back and reported that the bank has absolutely no risk, the head trader responded, "I certainly hope you are wrong, Herr Professor. If you are correct, then we can't be making any money." So what this hilarious story tells us is that risk is a central object in finance, and the absence of risk is a severe deficiency of the original Black-Scholes model. Of course, we all know a long list of other problems with the Black-Scholes model. It doesn't match option pricing data. It doesn't match stock pricing data, as stock prices are not log normal. It neglects transaction costs. It assumes complete markets and continuous rehedging, both assumptions in contradiction with reality and market practices. And finally, it loses risk in options. So as we can see, there are so many problems here that it's not even clear where to start. And one question that could be asked here is, what would be a minimal change to the Black-Scholes formula that would be useful and meaningful, yet would have the same or similar level of tractability as the Black-Scholes? Now, one possible way is to follow the mainstream approach in quantitative finance called the risk-neutral approach. As follows from its very name, this approach ignores the problem of absence of risk in the Black-Scholes model. And instead it focuses exclusively on matching market quotes using some modifications of the original log normal dynamics of the Black-Scholes model. This became a dominant mantra of most of work that derivatives quants do. Before you apply such models to price and hedge an option, you have to calibrate it, which by itself can be a very time-consuming or tedious work. I would differentiate between two classes of such risk-neutral mantras. There are parametric mantras and there are non-parametric mantras. The first class includes stochastic volatility models, jump diffusion models, and Levy models. The second class includes local volatility models, maximum entropy models, and non-parametric Bayesian models. And I have in fact spent a large part of my professional life in finance developing various maximum entropy models and other non-parametric models, and I have been quite happy with them for a while because they are so flexible. They almost always work wonderfully and match data quite well. But then I found a better approach that I will discuss later. It pointed to the source of the problems with these models, namely that they are missing risk. And risk is a kind of the most important thing in the whole game. Now, these approaches started to remind me of Ptolemy's epicycles. Very similar to risk-neutral models, both parametric and non-parametric, Ptolemy explained apparent imperfections in motion of planets by introducing hidden variables called different and epicycle. so that the observed planet motion becomes a superposition of two hidden processes. And Ptolemy had detailed calculations and fitted model parameters for more than 40 heavenly bodies that were known at that time. But how meaningful this approach is? There is a remarkable story of a cult that was created during the Second World War. Japanese and then the Allies have built military bases and airfields on small islands in the Pacific. Food for soldiers was delivered there once a week from the air by planes dropping boxes with cargo. Soldiers were friendly with the native people who did not know much of civilization before that. So after the Allies left, they started worship a deity called John From, whom they expected back at some point with cargo for them. And they built wooden rifles and straw airplanes in their worshipping of John From. So I thought that this would be a good analogy to what we do in quantitative finance. With all our PhDs, CPUs, and GPUs, how different are we from these gentlemen with their wooden rifles and straw airplanes if we exclude risk in options from our models? What exactly are we after in this approach? Someone famously said that about string theory that it's not even wrong. And we can say essentially the same thing about risk-neutral models of quantitative finance. As long as they do not include risk, these models are not even wrong. They are just about something else. It's just a branch of math called mathematical finance.